couple of weeks ago, we spent a little time looking at the statement in the Upanishad that says, Asatoma Sadgamaya. That, as you know, is followed by Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. As I look at that statement that says Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, so many thoughts and ideas go through my head, and I'm not even sure that I can actually articulate what goes on inside me very well, but I'd like to make an attempt today to try to share with you my thoughts on this matter. Like I've said so many times, over and over again, when I sit in front of you and try to share what occurs to me, two things I should keep in mind first, and I should share it with you as well. The first thing is, irrespective of what we talk about, the forces that sit and really talk through me, just like anything you say, there are forces that sit and make you say those things. It doesn't have to be a Pravachana, this is true 24/7. They know what should come out of my mouth based upon my yogyata, and they also know what you should hear. The second point I'd also like to make on a more mundane level is that we all do or should do Shravana followed by Manana. And of course, Nididhyasana, and like I've said several times, I also add this thing called Dharana. But this interaction of Shravana and Manana results in many things, and that for me is directly related to this statement from the rishis that says Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. These are what occurred to me. How it comes out and all that, like I said before, is not up to me, but I don't claim that what I saw is correct or what I say is absolute. It's just a humble attempt to share with you the results of my manana. That's all. It's an offering. That's all it is. When I look at this statement that says Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, the easiest translation to English or to any other language, in Kannada I can say Kattalininda Belakige Karatkondu Hogu, or in English I can say take me from darkness to light. But I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know which darkness we are talking about and which light we are talking about. So the very first thing, if I say, take me from point A to point B, the assumption is that I'm at point A and I would like to go to point B. Otherwise, there's no point in saying, take me from here to there. If I'm not here, there's no point in taking me there, right? So first I need to know where I am. It's sort of like, one visualization that I get is that when we are all born, we are born into some family, and we don't select our parents or grandparents or whoever. We are sort of dropped into, it's like a parachute. You just come on, plop there, right? And just like a person, if you think of the parachute regiment in an army, they're dropped where they have to fight. It's not up to the soldier to decide where the plane should go and where he's going to be dropped. There are bigger forces. There are so many levels where these things are affected. If you think of it like, again, using that analogy of an army, because you may say, why are we talking about fighting? It's not a question about fighting or violence or anything like that, but everything is a struggle. It's not so much a fight, but it's a struggle. And all of us struggle through life. All of us do that. And at different points, the struggle is different. Just like once this guy is dropped in a particular place, he cannot take that parachute and drive it somewhere else. Okay, wherever it drops is where it drops. And what he has to do is, wherever he is dropped, whatever he does, matter of fact, when he's falling down, he doesn't even know what he's going to face, right? He doesn't even know that. So whatever it is, his job is to fight for two reasons. One is his own survival, and the second reason is for the cause for which he is fighting, right? There are two reasons, right? It's not just his own survival. Similarly, when I'm dropped in any janma, I'm dropped into this environment, not just the family, but everything else surrounding me. That's where I'm dropped. And I cannot question and say, why am I dropped here? A guy, when he comes down on the ground from the parachute, that is not the time to sit there and think, why am I here? Why are we fighting? What is the purpose of war and all those things? He'll get killed, right? So his job is to just focus, look around, evaluate the environment, and based on his training, take a decision as to what he should do based on the environment there, right? It's really not that much different. I mean, the way I look at it, it's not that much different. I'm plopped into this environment. I don't know why I'm plopped there. I have no clue. And I look around and I see all these things. And based on that, it's not that people around me are my enemies or something like that, but I'm in an environment, right? So in any environment, there are things that are constructive. In any environment, there are things that are good and constructive, and there are things that are, I want to say bad, but it could be destructive, right? Not only to us, but it affects so many other people too. Like, it's not just about me. Just like the guy, that soldier the parachuter who he's not just fighting for himself. He's fighting for the army, right? He's fighting for a bigger cause in the universe. And that may decide who wins, and that may decide what's going to happen in a country or whatever, right? So there's a much bigger effect. He's a very small, tiny part of that. But he is a part of that. He's not an independent operator, right? Similarly, when I'm plopped in here, I'm not an independent operator. It's not about me. It is also about me. Because if this parachuter guy, if he is a stupid guy and somebody shoots him, as soon as the moment he gets done, somebody shoots him, what's the point, right? There's no point in that. He has to survive. First, he has to survive. And he has to, again, evaluate the environment. He has to evaluate the environment, and his decisions are based upon what that unknown environment just gave it to him, right, at that moment. But the decisions that he takes are based upon the training. He's trained over and over and over again to deal with different types of situations, right? It's very situational, right? That is not the time for him to sit and question, why the heck did I join the army, or why was I dropped here? That's a wrong time to think about all those things. Similarly, when we are dropped into this environment, that is not the time to think about all those things. You can, that same guy, again, if going back to the same analogy, once that guy, does his thing, whatever, and at some point he's going to retire, isn't it? So then he can sit and look back at all the things he did and evaluate things and see what lessons he can learn from that and so on. But when he's fighting is not the time to be doing all those things. Similarly, we have this janma, this some duration in which we have the energy, the opportunity, not just energy, but also the opportunity, yoga, opportunity to make things happen that affect other people, right? The day will come, at least for most of us, if we live long enough, the day will come when you just sit there and you cannot do anything, right? And you can sit there and you can look back at everything and, evaluate everything and so on. So the question is, when I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, that tamas is not darkness. Well, it depends on how you define darkness. If you define darkness to be absence of light, at least that's not the way I look at it. Because even if you physically look at darkness, right? Suppose there's no light at all. You're in a dark place, a very dark place, right? Darkness has a color, doesn't it? See, if it's just the absence of light, there should be nothing. That's not true. Darkness is black, right? It has a color. So it's an entity in itself. It is not the absence of something. It is a thing in itself, right? So that thing in itself, that so-called darkness that, we talk about black holes in the universe and all these things, right? So if you look at darkness, it is basically an environment where energy is absorbed. Energy is just absorbed. Nothing is reflected. So look, there are two things that can happen. Is an object can emit light, right? Started deep or some, it can emit light, right? Or it can absorb light, or it can reflect light, right? Those are the three possible. At least I don't know a fourth thing. You can either emit light, reflect light, or absorb light, right? So suppose you say that there is an object and that object is not emitting light. So because it's not emitting light, you cannot say it shall absorb light. That's not true. That's not true at all. It has nothing, whether light is shining on that has nothing to do with it, right? Its nature. Its nature is to absorb light, right? You agree? So if it is so tamas is a state for me where it absorbs energy, it doesn't reflect energy, and it doesn't emit energy. It's like if you look at these three states, it's a state in itself. And it is in that state whether light is shining on that or not, right? However, having said that, why do we say, okay, then Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya? Well, because these two things, plus and minus, is no different, man. We all talk about the three things, we talked about even electrical terms and all these things, inductor, capacitor. See, okay, I'll stay away from engineering. You cannot have light and darkness. You cannot have those two things present at the same place at the same time. That's all. The two cannot coexist. That's all. Right? Why? Because one is minus, one is plus. You cannot say, I'm both minus and plus. That cannot be. Like you can have minus 5 and plus 7. That's possible. But the net result is plus 2, isn't it? It's positive. Yeah? On the other hand, you can have minus 7 and plus 5. And the result is minus 2. It's negative. So it's either darkness or light. Right? Then we have to ask ourselves, so what is this darkness that we are talking about then, that can exist by itself? Well, actually, one way of looking at that is when I'm born, when I'm a tiny little baby, right? I don't know anything. Right? I don't know any connection other than my own mother, for whom I have an intuitive relationship. I don't even know who the heck my dad is. Okay? Even if the fellow is standing right in front of me, I don't know. If some other person can be standing in front of me. The baby doesn't look at the father and say, oh, hi, Appa, how are you? It doesn't do that, right? We train that mother, it naturally goes to the mother, right? It's trained, it's intuition, it's trained to do that. But not the father, right? But the dad just hangs around, keeps playing with the kid and they say, Appa, Appa, all these things. And they say after some time, the baby also saying, Appa, Appa, right? That's all, right? So the thing is that when at the beginning, it is tamas, not because it is incapable of emitting light or, cannot emit light, it can reflect light, right? So it's not because it is incapable of that. The problem is it's lack of knowledge, that's all. So when I think about it, I'll say, okay, so I don't know anything, and then I'm trained. It's like programming a brand new computer, right? So the memory is all just sitting there. So you go and program it, and the computer will do whatever you program it to do, right? So we all get programmed with our environment. You'll say, this is this, that is that, and from tiny childhood, our parents and other people along the way will train us to, this is what we refer to as samskara, right? The people tell us things and give us things and say, this is what you do, that's not what you do. They can do all of those things. They can do all of that. But there's something beyond that. See, if you can program every single thing, we would be living in a brave new world, isn't it? Have you read Aldous Huxley's Brave New World? Read that? Never read? Never heard of it? Never heard of it? Oh, very famous book. If you get a chance, I don't know. I thought it was a very famous book. It is a famous book. Okay, thank you. It is a famous book. It's called The Brave New World. Actually, he wrote another one called Brave New World Revisited. And The Brave New World Revisited is actually what is happening today in the world. Okay, it's actually happening today. It is a little freaky that he actually thought of that so many decades ago. But in the Brave New World, if you have seen that book, there's the alpha and the beta and the gamma. People are classified into alpha, beta, gamma and all that. They're all programmed to do certain things, right? If you could do that, then you can program a person to do whatever you want him to do, isn't it? But even in the Brave New World, it turns out there are a couple of people who they cannot stand that. They go out of that and things happen, right? Here to build a story, right? I mean, so anyway, the nature of the jiva comes into play. You can program all you want. You can do whatever you want on the prabhava part, but the svabhava part is there. There's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing you can do about that, right? That's there. But it may be hidden in so many things, right? There's so many layers on top of that it may be hard for you to go and actually figure out what the svabhava is. It's not that easy to do that because there's so many layers. And to penetrate through those layers to find out exactly what the svabhava is extremely difficult, very, very hard to do, let alone other people. I cannot even figure out what my own svabhava is, forget about other people, right? So it's very hard, very, very hard. Prabhava, being on the surface, tends to take over initially, right? But there's something inside that keeps driving you to go in a particular direction. So when I look at darkness, the question is simply this, right? Am I absorbing energy from my surroundings, or am I reflecting energy from my surroundings, or is there something within me that is emitting energy? Let's think about that for just a second, okay? Most of us would like to absorb things from, in every situation, what's in it for me? Famous statement, right? What's in it for me? How can I benefit? In everything, it doesn't matter what it is. What can I look at you people and say, what can I get from him? What can I get from him? What can I get from him? It's always a constant in my head. If I'm constantly thinking, what's in it for me? What can I get from this situation? How do you benefit? And today, unfortunately, even when you in the educational system, we are trained to do that. We are actually trained to do that and say, figure out what's in it for you. And they'll give you algorithms to figure that out, right? That is true. Haven't you seen that? I mean, everything tells you how do you succeed. Same thing, okay? They can use different. They may not say, okay, we'll tell you how to grab things or something like that. That doesn't sound nice. But if I say, let me tell you how to succeed, they'll say, oh, cool, man. I would love it. Tell me how to succeed. Say, how do you succeed? What is your definition of success? If you ask people, and I ask, because I deal with students all the time, right? All the time. This is a common thing for me at work. I'll say, you want to be successful? Everybody says, yeah, I want to be successful. Say, okay, cool. So tell me, what should you be doing 5 years from now and 10 years from now? I'll tell you how to do that, okay? I cannot make it happen, but I can give you some guidelines, on what might help you do that. What do you want to be, for you, suppose 5 years from now, if I come to you and say, hey, Neil, are you successful? And Neil says, yes, I'm successful. 5 years from now. Then I say, Neil, what should you be doing 5 years from now for you to say, yes, I'm very successful? And almost always, I'm not talking about Neil, okay? For those of you listening, he's just sitting in front of me, so I mentioned that name. This is true for anybody. So if I ask a student, when you graduate, you go into the workforce or whatever, what should you be doing 5 years from now? And what should you be doing 10 years from now? Typically, occasionally I get a different answer, but more often than not, 9 out of 10 times at least, they always tell me, they'll say, I want to be a manager by the time I'm 5 years, in 5 years. In 10 years, I should be making this much money and this is kind of position I'd like to have. If I become a VP in 10 years, I consider myself extremely successful. My thing is, I'm not talking about you. So, if for me, the definition of success is what I get. It's not about what I get. That's not success, in my opinion, right? So, because I'm absorbing things from the environment. It's all about me. I say, I want to get this. I want to have this. I want to be making so much money. I want to have this title. Dot, keeps going. To me, that is tamas. Because I'm absorbing light, absorbing energy. Right? That's tamas for me. Right? If I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, then you say, what is, so how do I become, so let's say I find myself in that situation, okay, for whatever reason. It's okay, I mean, no need to sit and cry about that. You just say, okay, this is my state. Otherwise, there's no point in asking Bhagavanta and say, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. If you say, no, there's no tamas in me. I don't absorb anything from the, I'm such a nice person, I only give everything. I'm such a nice person. I never get anything from anybody. I don't expect it. I'll say, yeah, sure, whatever, Then, okay, next person. Because that's not true, right? It's not true for you, it's not true for me. We're all absorbing things from society, all of us. When I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Jyoti, there is only one true Bimba, right? The source of all. One way of looking at this, Jyotirgamaya, you say, take me from darkness to light. We're not saying, make me the light. I'm not saying, I'm darkness, make me light. I'm saying, take me from darkness to light. Right? Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Take me to the Jyoti. So one way, if you want to look like really broad, I'll say, what that really means? What it really means is this. Give me moksha at the end. I mean, that's at a very, very long-term goal. That's a very long-term goal, okay? Let's come to short-term, okay? That's fine, okay? We all say that and we don't even know what the heck that means. We'll say, I want to moksha. So say, okay, sure, whatever, right? Say, cool, you can do all those things and then forget about that, right? But what about tomorrow morning? Can I say, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya tomorrow morning? Not when Mahapralaya takes place. Tomorrow morning. Today I'm in tamas. Tomorrow morning I want Jyotirgamaya. Take me to that light. So what is a light supposed to do? Well, it has to give out energy, right? Then you say, okay, so if he's the only one who is the source of all light, then where is the question of me giving out light? That doesn't even arise. Yeah, but that's why I said there's something in between, right? Which is this being a surface that reflects, right? There is no perfect reflecting surface, is there? There's no such thing. It'll always absorb some. The incident light, whatever it is, right? That incident light, only a portion of that is reflected. It's never perfect. But I better reflect something, man. Something. So if energy shines on me from wherever it comes from, when it shines on me, it is kind enough to shine on me. If I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, I'm only asking tomorrow morning, let me become a slight reflecting surface. Let me at least reflect something. I get something, I give something. As you know, I don't know how many of you, if you look at how a LED works, all of you know what a LED is, right? Light emitting diode, like that thing, the red thing, the little red good things, yeah, okay. So if you look at a light emitting diode, for example, that is one thing that happens in these things, right? Or, okay, forget about light emitting diode. I'll give you a simple, much more simple example. If you go on the street, you see that sulfur lamp, right? The lamp on the lamp post. Right? There are different types of lights. And some are yellowish in color, some are different. All of those things, you say, what is it doing? That material, what's it doing? Well, what it is doing is this, right? Energy goes into that thing. So if you look at that matter, when energy is given to that in form of electricity in this case, right, current goes. So that atom, which is part of the molecule, whatever the material is, right, it becomes an excited atom, mainly meaning that one of the electrons goes into higher level orbit, okay. The life of an excited atom is only 10 to the minus the eighth of a second. Okay. That's how an electron can stay. So after 10 to the minus eighth of a second, which is 0.01 microsecond, it falls down. The thing is, so it got energy that made it jump up. When it falls down, it emits energy it put in the form of photons. Okay, and it so happens that those photons, that light that is emitted is in a visible range for us. And that's how I got my light. So, but the lamp is not really emitting light. It's not reflecting light. It is not emitting light. But its nature is such that when you give energy to it, that energy gets converted into this light which is visible for other people and useful. Now, can I be like that? Is a question. So if some energy flows into me, however, in whatever form, okay, can I be this transformational agent, if you will, where I can take that energy and convert it into a frequency which other people can see and use it for something? You know where this is headed, right? We're not really talking about light, we're talking about knowledge. So when energy goes through a person, anyone, you, me, and it always does, right? So stuff goes through you, okay, whatever it may be. It may be knowledge, it may be money, it may be whatever. We all get stuff, right, in life. Maybe health, whatever. Ability to move, whatever, right? So something is given to you. You cannot say, I don't have anything to give. Yeah, right. Of course you're given something. We all have different things. What you have, I may not have, and vice versa. But we all have things, okay? We can all do things. The question is, the transformation. Do I just observe that? Like that lamp, right? The gas in that lamp, it gets excited. Then after, like I said, a fraction of a microsecond, it falls down. Nothing visible comes out. So then you can say it absorbed the energy, right? Because it didn't put out anything. So that is one form of reflection too. This transformational thing is also a type of reflection of energy. See, don't think of like a mirror or something like that. Any energy that hits me or goes through me, if I can be such that the transformation of that energy that comes out of me, hopefully something will come out, if it comes out of me, if it is useful, visible meaning useful to other people, they can use that energy and do something which they could not do without it. You understand what I'm saying? That also is Jyotirgamaya. Even though I'm not independently putting out anything. Right? So when I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, I'm just saying, hey Bhagavan, you're going to give me stuff. Okay, you're giving me stuff today, you're going to give me things tomorrow. Whether I deserve it, don't deserve it, I don't know. I don't know anything. Right? But when this stuff comes to me, whatever it is, the transformation, let it be such that it's not all about me and I just grab. Let it get transformed and get out into the universe again so that it looks like light to other people. If you look at a lamp, it looks like a light to you, let's say you don't know anything about technology, you don't know that the current is flowing and it's got a gas inside, you don't know any of those things, do you? You just say, oh, there's a light, man. That puts out light. It's not independently putting out light. Yes, it is true, it's putting out light, but it's not independently putting out light, right? So I want to be that thing. When I say Jyotirgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, let me not just observe the energy, let me be an agent of change, let me be a transformer, if you will. Let me take this thing and transform it to something which makes people see what's going on and let them use that for something in their own lives. That is also Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya for me. Yeah, I'm just sharing my ideas. You don't have to agree with me. There is a third thing. Third way of looking at this. Concept is same, just different ways of looking. So, okay, forget about lamps and lamp posts and all these things. You say, I don't know all those things, man. All I know is that, I light a lamp, doing puja, we light lamps, right? Suppose I take ghee, I take ghee and put a wick, soak it in that thing and I light that. That's also putting out light. So if you look at this concept of, I'd explained this before on some Deepavali or something, I'd explained this. So let me briefly say this because it's the same thing. It's not. So in the lamp, I have the ghee, I have the wick, and of course there's the container. Without the container, there's nothing. Right? But assuming there's a container, assuming that I have a sadhana sharira, otherwise no light, nothing. Right? So you need to have the sadhana sharira. So let's assume that the container is there. Given, that's a given. Then the question is that wick is there. The wick has a finite length, doesn't it? Right? You keep pushing the wick a little bit. At some point, like just a little while ago, I was telling my wife, I said, hey, the wick is going to put a new bati in this. Right? It is a finite length. So similarly, this janma, if I think of me as a wick, I have a finite length of time, isn't it? So eventually it's going to burn out. It becomes so small, you cannot, no lamp, nothing. Which means that, and I don't know how big it is. I mean, I really don't know. It may be the wick may be 1 inch long, 2 inches long, I don't know. It is what it is, right? So I have this finite amount of time. If you look at if you look at a lamp, look at the tip, you don't know how much is left behind, right? You only know when it's over, that's all. Right? You keep pulling it. At some point, you try to pull it over, it comes out, right? But up to a point, it keeps coming out. You pull it out a little bit, put something and light it, right? Similarly, this janma, I don't know how long this is. So if I think of this sharira as that the container, right? Then if I think of this wick as this janma, there's a certain amount of time. Two things have to happen, isn't it? For that, there are two things. One is, it has to be soaked in something. First thing. Otherwise, if you light the wick and a bug, it's just gone. Right? It's not going to burn for a long time. So it has to be soaked in something. And secondly, somebody has to light it, isn't it? So in that context, if I say, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, if I'm like a stupid lamp sitting there, I said this in one of my songs too. Huh? Barakumbara in the last line, so Mukund nobba matra. Okay, anyway, whatever. Only he can light that lamp, right? So when I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, I'm like a lamp sitting there with a wick and everything. The lamp is there, the wick is there, everything is there. I'm soaked in something, maybe good, bad, or the ugly, but I'm soaked in something, right? But please come and light this lamp. So when I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, It's a prayer to Bhagavanta and saying, hey Bhagavan, light this lamp. Let this janma be useful. There's no point in having a lamp, a wick, soaked in something, and nobody lights that lamp. You say, yeah, but if you light it, it will burn. It's going to burn anyway, man. So what are you going to do? So you just have a lamp and, you don't have a matchbox, you don't light it. It never gets lit, it's just sitting there. What's the point in that? There's no point in that. So just going through a life, it's like having a lamp and a wick and everything and no light. So when I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, let this sharira, which is capable of being a sadhana sharira, actually become a sadhana sharira. You have the sharira. Sharira is given. Okay, you're born, you have the sharira. We keep saying, oh, I'm given a sadhana sharira. I'm given a sharira which is capable of being a sadhana sharira. That's all. That doesn't mean that automatically, just like lamp, yeah, it's capable of being a light. But if nobody lights it, it is a lamp that is capable of being a deepa, capable of being a light. But it doesn't mean that somebody has to light that thing, right? So when I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, I can say, hey Krishna, you gave me all this. You gave me all of this, okay? And I didn't even beg for being lit. So I said, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, come and light this lamp. So that why do we light lamps there, man? Krishna doesn't need light, right? It's not like he's in darkness and I have to go light a lamp or something like that. Right? It is an indication, just like I say all the time, when you offer a flower, when you offer arashana, kunkuma, everything has a meaning. If I light a lamp, we do this all the time, right? Like if somebody tells me that, oh, somebody is like sick or something, some relative, somebody is sick or something, say, oh, go light a lamp. Right? I don't know if you guys do that, but at least the way I was raised, immediately, immediately light a lamp in front of Krishna. Why should I do that? What does it do? What is the significance? What is the thought behind it? So if somebody is sick somewhere, or somebody is in trouble of some kind, so I light a lamp here in front of Krishna, and Krishna says, oh, thank God, man, I'm so glad finally he lit a lamp. I was in darkness, he lit a lamp. So then he comes and says, what can I do for you, buddy, because you lit this lamp for me? I'll say, oh, Krishna, go make that person well. They say, oh, okay, no problem, I'll go do it. That's nonsense. He doesn't need any light. Who needs the light? I need the light. He doesn't need the light. I need the light. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. So when he lights that lamp, when he lights this janma, the question is, we always have to ask ourselves, right? What is it that is burning? Is it the wick that is burning? Or is it the material in which it is soaked that is burning? Because the wick keeps getting shorter and shorter, doesn't it? The material, like if it's a ghee or some sesame oil, whatever, right? That also keeps reducing. Right? So which is it that is burning? Both. They're both burning. Right? But you cannot take a lamp, just pour some ghee in it and light that. Can you? Or you cannot just take a wick, not put anything in it and light that either. You need the wick and you need the ghee or the oil. Right? And it has to be soaked properly. That's another important thing. It's not just putting it. You notice we always, like we take the tip and put something and we touch, make sure that it's soaked before we light it, isn't it? Otherwise what happens? The wick just gets burnt. Which means this janma better be soaked. And if you look at the last line, one before that, that's what. You can be sitting there waiting, right? But he has to come and light the lamp, right? So this soaking is also important. See, for a lot of us, the thing is that you can have a wick and you can have some material in which it is dipped. There's a difference between being dipped in something and being soaked in something. Right? There's a huge difference between something dipped in something, being soaked in something. The difference between dipping and soaking is basically this. That material, that wick, okay. So suppose suppose I'm an idiot, okay, which probably I am, but that's an arguable point. But instead of taking the cotton wick, okay, and sometimes for fashion they do these things, right? They put some like electric lamp and put a wire there. That's not a real lamp. Suppose instead of using a cotton wick, I use a piece of wire or something. So I put a piece of wire in the ghee and I keep taking match and I try to light that thing. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. You can try all you want. It will only get hot. Right? The difference between a lamp with an iron wick or something like that and a cotton wick is basically this. We say moksha prada jiva. If you look at Chaturvarna, Acharya Madhva said this. Okay. You can be a Varna, you can be a Brahmana, you can be a Vaishya. It doesn't matter, you can belong to any four of these things. A Shudra. You can be any one of the four, Kshatriya, whatever, okay, it doesn't matter. That's your nature, right? But all of these four Varnas are capable of getting moksha, right? But there are people, what is normally the same lecha, right? There are these jivas that are incapable, okay? It's not, oh come on, you can say, this is so unfair. This is a famous thing. Life is unfair. This is unfair. So you say, what is unfair? I tried to light this, I had this beautiful lamp, I put an iron wire and I'm trying this for a long time. Every day I try to light it, the damn thing doesn't light, it's unfair. You say you're a crack. It's unfair. That cannot, it's incapable of lighting. It can get hot, you keep on heating that, it can become red hot, but it's not capable of burning. Similarly, when you know why it is incapable of burning the iron? Because when you dip that iron wire in the tupa, in the ghee, it is dipped in it. It is not soaked in it. Right? So all of this talk is only for those things that are capable, material-wise, capable of being soaked in something. Not just being dipped in something. It's a huge difference. So the question is, that material, the ghee, whatever, is it capable of going into the wick or not? Right? So another way of looking at this, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, I'll say, hey Bhagavan, let me not be an iron wire, let me be a cotton wick. Let me be capable of getting soaked in this Bhagavad Prasada. Let me be soaked in it. Right? Not just be, there's a saying, right, that English, South spoon alla, ladle. If it is, those of you of Kannada, I was trying to find a translation for Sautu. If you take a ladle, there's a saying that if you take a ladle, dip it in nice sambar, it doesn't know the taste of the sambar. I don't know if you've heard of that saying. I mean, paraphrased, but whatever. It doesn't know the taste of it. It's always dipped in the sambar, but it never knows the taste of sambar. So being dipped in something there's no point, it's worthless. But being soaked is something else. Because if I take a rice, a grain of rice, dip it in the sambar soaks into the rice. So when I take that rice out and eat it, I taste sambar. Right? If I take the ladle and break it off and try to chew it, you don't taste any sambar. Okay, you probably, that's why I said if it's become a crack, maybe I am a crack, who knows, or whatever. But so the important thing is that why do we use rice with sambar, man? Because it's a carry, it's something that carries that thing for you, isn't it? So similarly, let me be like that grain of rice dipped in the sambar. So that if somebody takes it out and eats it, they taste the sambar. Not the rice. It's only a carrier. They should taste the sambar. Nobody says, oh, the rice is so tasty. They say the sambar is so tasty, right? Or, going back to the Deepa thing, that thing. When you see you say, Tuppada Deepa. It's a ghee lamp, right? Nobody say, oh, idu battiya deepa. For those of you who don't know Kannada, I'm saying, nobody says the lamp is, nobody refers to the wick actually, they're only referring to the medium, the material, right? So I can say, another thing I can say, when I say, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, that same lamp, the wick is there, the lamp is there, and even suppose he lights it. Let's say he lights it also. Krishna is gracious enough to come and light that lamp. The question is, what kind of energy is it emitting? They always say that not to use groundnut oil, peanut oil, right? They say don't use that. Because tamas, you don't want tamasic oil. Okay? You've heard this before, if you use peanut oil or groundnut oil, that's what you call it, that energy will go to Asuri Shaktis. Right? Ellenne, till oil, sesame oil, that goes to Devata Shaktis. Ghee alone goes to Bhagavanta. I'm just repeating what our wise ones tell us, right? So it's not just being lit. You must say, lamp is a lamp, man. Light. Why should I light a ghee, lamp? Well, this peanut oil is, or some other vegetable oil, whatever, is cheaper. Okay, let me light that. So it's not question. Who are you doing it for? Question: you're doing it for yourself, man. Ask yourself what kind of energy you want. That's all. Right? So when I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, another way I can interpret that is change that material. I'm the container, the wick is my janma. The person lighting the lamp did two things, right? Suppose there is a lamp and a wick. It's given to you. This janma, this body is given to me. It's given to me. Okay, it's there. The person who lights the lamp does two things, isn't it? They pour ghee or oil or whatever, make sure it's soaked, then they light it. Right? So another way of, tamas, let me not get the oil. When it's squeezed, how do you get oil? You squeeze something, right? The oil is in that. Like peanuts, for example. You squeeze peanut, you get peanut oil, right? You squeeze yellow sesame seeds, you get sesame oil, right? But the big difference between those two oils and ghee is very different. Very, very different. There's a huge difference. If you take something that was underneath the ground, take it and squeeze it, something in darkness. So people doing things in darkness, in ignorance. You squeeze that. What do you get from that? You light that, that energy will go to Asuri Shaktis. So one way of looking at that is, I'm burning, the wick is burning, Janma is going and all, it's going by, okay? But there's one problem, one minor detail. The minor detail is that every single thing I do it in darkness. Just like you find things that are under the ground. So I can take things under the ground, take it and squeeze it and oil comes. Similarly, I can take my karma that's done in darkness, squeeze that, something comes that also can burn my janma. But the light that comes from that energy goes to Asuri Shaktis. So when I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, I can also say, hey Bhagavan, I don't want peanut oil, I want ghee. That's another interpretation. I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. And that ghee, where did that come from? The milk originally came from the cow, isn't it? You're not squeezing the cow, right? Hopefully not. The milk that comes from the cow, right? This is not any cow we are talking about. We are talking about Vedamata, man. The knowledge that comes from the Vedas. If I take that, and again we have talked about this, I'll say it very briefly because we talked about this in detail at other times. If that has to become ghee that can burn in this janma, it has to go through so many phases before. You cannot. Have you ever lit a lamp with milk? You'll be bigger crack than me if you do that, right? Or curds. No, it won't burn. It will not burn, right? There's only one thing, but the ghee came from curds, yogurt, right? And the yogurt came from the milk. But the milk will not light the lamp, the yogurt will not light the lamp, but the ghee will light the lamp. So when I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, another way of looking at that is, hey, you're giving me all this Vedic knowledge. The milk. I got the milk, okay? It's there. The cow is there, the milk is there. But help me go from milk to ghee, which means that let it first become yogurt. So, in Kannada, we call anyway, you need to put you heat it and cool it down and put a drop of yogurt from yesterday, right? And then it solidifies. So, and we have talked about this before. This is mantropadesha from a guru. So you get this Vedic knowledge, you heat it up, that means manana. You do manana, let it cool, then you get a mantropadesha from a guru. That one drop, just one little drop called mantropadesha, will solidify that knowledge. You churn that, keep applying it all your life. You keep churning that, and magically, as Purandaradasa says, magically someday that butter will come. You know what? You cannot even light that butter. Even the butter you cannot light. So even that bhakti, which we call namanita, the butter, even that you cannot light. You have to heat that too, because even that has water and sedimentation. So the way you turn, what is the difference between ghee and butter? Ghee is butter minus the water content and minus the sedimentation, minus the rajasic component. So bhakti minus the rajasic component and the tamasic component, you heat that, cool it down and filter. Similarly, even that bhakti has to be clarified. Ghee they call clarified butter, right? So even in that, I have to do something to take out that rajasic and tamasic component in that bhakti. And what is left? That is the ghee that if lit, Bhagavanta will accept that. That energy goes, it resonates with him. Navanita Chora. So the only energy that will resonate with him. That's why they say, Tuppadipatra Devar Gogatan, Bhagavantan Gogatan, right? So the only way to do that is that take that Vedic knowledge, you do manana in that, and let it be, after it cools down, temperature wise, comes to room temperature, put a mantropadesha from a guru, wait for some time, it solidifies, you churn that, the butter comes out magically, bhakti comes out. And even that bhakti, you heat that, let the rajasic, when you when you heat the butter, right? So the steam goes out, right? So have you seen the thing? It bubbles out and it puss, something. So the steam comes out. So even that, when you heat that bhakti, the rajasic component will all evaporate and go away. And then the sedimentation will go to the bottom. And then you filter that. That is the only thing that will burn. That's the only thing that will burn. So when I say Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, I'll say, let this janma, let this wick be soaked in ghee. So it's not just getting the knowledge. There's a huge distance between just people, say, oh, will you do pata, will you do pravachana? Yeah, I can do all those things, but you cannot light the lamp, right? So what good is it for you? I can do it. It's like somebody says, okay, you want a gallon of, you say, I want a gallon of milk. I say, okay, fine, I'll give you a gallon of milk. Yeah, you can drink it. It's okay, but it's not lighting any lamp. So if this janma really has to become a sadhana, if it really has to become a light, if it really emits energy that is resonant with Sri Krishna, then you have to go through these stages. There's no shortcut. But even with all that, you do all of those things. You struggle, and you do all of those things. And the bhakti, the wick, is soaked in that ghee. Even then there may be no light. Even then you're dependent on him to come and light that lamp. That is my take on Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Krishna Arpanamastu.